Okay, welcome to our podcast. We are going to talk about AI and e-commerce.
Very, very excited. We've been talking about this for some time, so we're finally making the meeting of the minds happen.
Agreed.
Max, I'm founder and CEO of Unveiled. I've been in and around commerce for the better part of the decade. For me, what gets me most excited about this is that this is the most excited and energized I've felt in commerce for the better part of a decade. We're finally at the edge of a wave where there's really new technology that's not just hype, but actually adoption. So that was why I'm excited to have this conversation and have it be a weekly touch point.
Yeah, awesome. I feel the same way. I'm Andrew. I actually was a SaaS executive back in the day and accidentally started an e-commerce company called headphones.com, which turned into the funnest project I've ever worked on. And we ended up building a product called Lantern within headphones that we spun out into its own company that is the missing set of retention tools for Shopify. And it's right at the intersection of data, which I know, Max, your company is as well, and about what to do with it. That's right down the fairway for us. And the two of us have been thinking about AI and data for a long time. This feels like a real wave that's already got incredible high leverage use cases in commerce and beyond. And I'm seeing things pop up almost every day that is blowing my mind. And I think that's where a lot of that excitement is coming from, where I'm just like, man, this is a really exciting time. I think we have a unique perspective because we know what we've learned throughout our careers, and we can apply that to this new wave, which is super cool. This podcast, same reason, just want a reason to stay super close to what's happening here and get creative about thinking about the application in the present and the future of AI and how it's going to impact commerce and how, as a operator, you can create incredible value and leverage. Those are my motivations.
I think when you reached out to me about this idea, what got me so excited is the disruption is happening so quickly, and there is so much broad content, whether it's fear mongering or hype cycles around AI, but the actual intersection of content specific to commerce and AI seems to be missing. And there's not a trusted expert, or as you put it before we hopped in the call, a Venn diagram where people are actually continuously showing up day to day, week to week, and talking about how this impacts us, not at a high level 5 years from now where we have AGI and UBI, but actually day to day, how can brand operators, how can execs understand and incorporate this stuff so they're not just talking about it in internal meetings, but actually acting on it. This podcast honestly exists in large part for the two of us. When I'm at the gym, when I'm in the car, I quite literally type in my Spotify podcast, AI and e-commerce, and the results are great. So I think for me, I hope to help play a role in carving out where we think this is going, where this is, and what are the implications today, tomorrow, next year, and 5 years from now.
Exactly. I want something like this that I can listen to and learn from, and I haven't found it. The next best thing is to make it, and I just like the forcing function of, okay, this is taking up a lot of my mental bandwidth anyway, but this focuses it in a really interesting way, and then hopefully we can create that trusted source that's kind of clear thinking, clear communicating about a topic that's going to really impact operators' lives and people who are currently working in commerce.
Awesome. So what are you thinking about right now? What's top of mind for you today?
The first thing I want to talk about, which is super recent, is OpenAI's new shopping features. What that means, what you should do about it, how to think about it as an operator, because things are changing fast and have to try to predict and have some conjecture to be able to make the right moves. OpenAI released this feature that's only been in the wild for like just under 2 weeks. Super interesting, and I think actually pretty well executed for a V1. I've played with it quite a bit, and what struck me was how intuitive it is. I think it's on OpenAI's 4.0 model right now. You can go and say that you're interested in finding a product. A good way to test it is like, I'm looking for an X under $400 or something. That'll activate its shopping chops, and you'll get to experience the feature. But the first thing I want to talk about is how it's implemented, and then how to think about it as a merchant and how to take advantage of this early iteration. So the feature is using natural language to figure out what you want. It's also using memory. So it's actually taking into account what it already knows about you when it's suggesting products, which I think is really interesting out of the box. They've been emphasizing in their communication that all the product placements are ad-free and not paid, which I think is a shot at Google of, this is fair and equal, and we're just trying to surface the best answers for the people, not the products that are paying the most to be featured. They're initially focused on just a few verticals. So fashion, beauty, home goods, and electronics are the ones that they rolled out with. Combined, those are a huge swath of e e-commerce, so it's going to impact a lot of people out of the gate. And they said they're going to expand based on user feedback into other verticals. I know a lot of the people listening to this are operating their businesses on Shopify, just by law of averages. So looking at the Shopify relationship here is interesting. One, all of the information is coming through structured metadata. If you don't know what that is, it's the stuff that's powering your Google Shopping feed, for example. Shopify and OpenAI have not publicly talked about the fact that they're working together, but there is some evidence of that under the hood. OpenAI's got some public code available, and there's some new strings that have shown up. There's like a Shopify underscore checkout underscore URL string that showed up. And there's also deep linking from ChatGPT shopping directly into Shopify checkouts. And if you pair the indications with Toby's internal letter to Shopify employees about AI, I think it stands to reason that they've collaborated on this. And worth noting that before this launched, Perplexity, which is an AI search engine that's using other models, had started Buy with Pro, which was also integrated with Shopify. Interestingly, headphones.com was one of the first partnerships to do that. I think it's even more interesting that the way they implemented this is if you search for a product on Perplexity, you click on Buy with Pro as a user or a shopper. It's a seamless one-click checkout experience. Your credit card's already on, like Perplexity has it. Your shipping address is already in there as well, and you can just buy with one click. In the back end, it was like mechanical Turk style. They had a human being go and complete that transaction with headphones.com and ship the product. Just a proof of concept or a test. But I think fascinating that a company that's raised as much money as they have chose something that really doesn't scale in order to test it out. If anyone's read the Paul Graham Do Things That Don't Scale essay, it reminds me of that a lot. I'm guessing their CEO read that too.
I have a question on, so you have a really interesting perspective here because you're one of the first brands to have implemented this with Perplexity. One, two, you're a vendor, and three, you're on top of the cutting edge stuff. Have you seen any conversions through Perplexity Shop with Pro?
Yes, we have.
Okay, tell me more about that, and please tell me why I'm wrong here. I don't think many conversions are going to happen for higher AOV items through ChatGPT or through Perplexity. The best mental model I think of today. And please tell me your thoughts and what you've actually seen at Headphones here.
Strong disagree. Excited to hash this out.
Okay, tell me. I'll give you my quick takes. I'm kind of curious to hear why you think this. The best mental model I have today, and this is kind of skeuomorphic in a sense, but the best mental model I have is just this is the next version of SEO, right? Or GEO as people are calling it now. I do tons of research and have been for months using ChatGPT and Perplexity for top of funnel. So whether it's a vacation, whether it's a product, but I always want to actually go to the site and go to other third-party trusted sources before I make the purchase. So my take is this is a net new acquisition channel, but I will be surprised if this becomes a substantial conversion channel. I don't think it's going to replace the website. It's a bit of a hot take.
Are you ready for the retort?
Let's hear it. Let's hear it.
So first of all, when you look at SEO and Google's ad monopoly, I'm talking about trillion-dollar businesses. And so the economic incentive to figure that out in a new form factor and paradigm is so powerful that I think the resources that are going to be dedicated to getting it right are going to take us to a spot where conversion is going to be high. And I think your points are all valid. Currently, if you're shopping through an LLM, you might use it to get advice, but then you want to go to some trusted third party, which is what you said. The thing is, trust is something that happens over time and is earned. So all of these new technologies and ways that you're discovering things, they're too new for you to deeply trust yet. But if you go and use them for shopping hundreds of times over the next few years, thousands of times, and every time they're coming out with a better output or outcome than you could have yourself, it's going to whittle away at your resistance. And eventually you're going to, by default, trust that the outcome is going to be great for you. It's just the incentives are too strong and all the pieces are there. And what has to change is consumer behavior. But consumer behavior changes all the time when things become easier or better. So I think if you just follow a curve at this stage, you are dubious max, as you should be. But I also think that just every day gets broken down. Something else to consider is, and I think the reason Headphones has already got conversions from Perplexity is
tell me more about that as well.
There's a huge amount of people using these tools and not a ton of things you can buy on them right now. So imagine if Google had figured out its ad system way earlier than it did, you were able to be one of the first merchants on there being shown to billions of people and highlighted. So of course, that's going to, just by the sheer volume of folks, the conversion rate doesn't have to be very high for you to end up with quite a bit of business.
So one thing I'm really curious about is what data does Perplexity surface to you? Do they tell you about impressions? Like what exactly are they giving, or is it just a black box
Black
where
box, yet we get the conversion when it comes through. That's it. We don't know how many people see our products. We don't know what search terms or prompts were showing up under. And it's funny, we know, like I actually personally know all the orders that come through because they're using one credit card to do all of these, and it gets flagged constantly for fraud. So they always have to email us to have us override that. So I always see those emails come through, which is pretty funny.
So I think we spoke a little bit about what this is and maybe contextualize a bit, but why do you think this actually matters? So very large, buzzy announcement. Lots of people are talking about it, but why does this actually matter for your brand exec today?
It matters today because people are going to find you through LLMs. Like with headphones, we ask them how they found us. We're getting an increasing number of people finding us through LLMs already. We perform really well in LLMs. I'll give you a piece of advice as a brand manager. In the Google and Meta world of going to market and acquiring customers, being really good at Google and Meta mattered a lot, and understanding how to analyze data, creative, your funnel, all those things. A lot of those tools are going to transfer, but some things are different. You brought up SEO before. Some of it's closer to SEO, where if you can't pay for placement and you're not running ads, what is it that these LLMs are going to prioritize? How are they going to surface your content? And today's version of that is the LLMs are going to look for the most trusted, useful sources of information. And if you are a retailer that's newer or lesser known, I think you need to find ways to hack credibility so that you're going to get the trust of an LLM. Of course, these are black box algorithms that you can't really reverse engineer, but you want to try to think about where they're pointing in order to know what you should do. So they're trying to surface the most useful information to a shopper, get really good at inserting itself in a monetary transaction that they can eventually take a piece of. If they can insert themselves at the point of transactions, that there's like huge money there. So if they're solving for that, then you want to be the source of what that LLM is looking for. An analogy for this is back when the Google Panda update came out for SEO. So prior to Panda, there was a bunch of companies that owned hundreds of websites, and they would have like carpets.com, clocks.com, whatever, and they were just gaming their SEO algorithm, and a lot of them were making hundreds of millions a year by running this strategy of gaming Google. The Panda update got Google closer to the goal of providing better information to consumers by getting rid of all of the hacky SEO websites. And actually Wayfair came out of that. Wayfair was one of the sites. They had like 200 websites originally that were all using SEO juicing, and they figured out how to navigate through that after Panda. There was contemporaries who went out of business. They went from 30, 40 million visits a month to 1,000 overnight. And that lesson to me was the lesson of don't try to game the thing that is currently happening. Think of what the thing is pointing at. So your strategy can be longer term, and you just know if you put one foot in front of the other, you're going to have the AI coming to you basically, instead of you having to try to constantly watch for this changing algorithm and change your strategy every day. And to be more pragmatic with the advice and actionable, I think having really trusted content that's built around trust and authority is probably the best hack you can have, because that data that you're generating is manna for LLMs. If you're generating really high quality content, I think that's the right play right now if you're a brand manager.
I guess my last question for you is what's next in terms of, okay, so we can now search and buy natively in ChatGPT. I think you broke it down really well. Maybe one more thing I would add is that the reason why this is not parallel to SEO is SEO just services specific links, and then it's up for you to actually look at each specific link and find the information. So there's way less context there, way less context. And within a chat interface, just because of the UI itself, there's so much more context. So it's not only top of funnel, the funnel is way, way, way deeper. So I think you've convinced me. I do think that this will be an emergent behavior that won't happen right away, the checkouts, but maybe not 3 months, 6 months, 12 months from now. But where do you think, like, I guess my closing question is more so what's next? Okay, so now ChatGPT or OpenAI and Shopify are ostensibly working together behind the scenes here. the intuitive thing for me would be, okay, now in a weird way, consumers have their own personal procurement manager, and that procurement manager is the algorithm. So now we're building websites and writing PDPs both for the end consumer when they come to our website, but then also for our own personal procurement manager, which is ChatGPT or Perplexity, whatever it is. So you just have a bunch of metadata in robot.txt. What's next here? Like, how do you actually act on these insights?
The first thing is making sure that your metadata is super clean. So obviously these technologies need to be able to surface your products. That's incredibly important. I have two thoughts on where things are going. One is it's going to be a lot less humans visiting your site, or what is even the form factor of how shopping happens could change quite a bit. And is a website the nexus for your brand anymore? The way to think about this is if you just take the idea of agents and the MCP protocol that allows agents to work with each other, you could end up in a world where agents are doing a bunch of stuff together and there's not much human in the loop anymore. In a world where your personal procurement manager, which can be thought of as an agent, is doing your shopping for you, and it has near perfect context. Google, even though it knows quite a bit about you, it still treats most of your Google searches like it's the first time you've searched. It might know your location and give you location relevant stuff, but it's not really customized. Whereas if something has a long memory of who you are and what you like, that just gets refined more and more over time. So the agent's going to get better at buying the thing you want. But I think what becomes important then is how do you insert yourself in agent traffic? No humans there, but just agent traffic. This is kind of out there. I don't think this is super actionable for today, but it's just an interesting thought experiment. You want to insert yourself in that agent traffic as much as possible. So I think that's an interesting one. I still think the answer to most of this is just be more useful and provide better products, be more trusted, really hack credibility as much as you can. Like in the SEO world, this is backlinking from high quality domains. There's going to be some analog for that. Where's the signal that you are legit so that these models can trust you? And obviously the best way to look legit is to be legit. Have a great product, great UGC that's genuine and authentic, and have people talking about you all over the internet in a positive way. All that stuff's going to help. And then super clean, machine readable information, I think, are the things you need to think about right now. But I also think, Max, I still differ with you a little bit. I think it's going to happen faster than we think. And maybe a better way to say that is I think the early adopters of this are going to get outsized returns. So maybe human behavior is not going to shift that fast, but there's enough people using these products right now that if you're one of the first and best, you're going to have huge advantages.
Yeah, interesting. I think you kind of answered the so what there. And your answer was, rather than following the algorithms, build a trusted repository of high credibility content so the algorithms come to you.
Yeah, it's just as easy
And
as
that
that.
is, but exactly, very, very, very easy, very straightforward. I think this is a podcast for a different time, but I think you have a lot to speak about that as well on kind of how headphones has done that.
Headphones chose to do that because we wanted a strategy that was more long-term.
When I look at commerce today, there's really just two buckets of brands. The first are brands that try to build durable brand equity, and this is via compounding assets, namely brand equity or these trusted resources that you're talking about. The second are, I think the best comp is honestly someone who works at a hedge fund, right? And they're finding arbitrage in the algorithms, they're finding arbitrage in the SEO, and their core competency is their skill set rather, in finding arbitrage. There's not so much durable brand equity there, but it's much more direct response. They have the best funnels, they have the best ads in the specific format, the best advertorials, whatever it may be. In order to be a trusted resource, you have to have a lot of content. Historically speaking, the cost of content creation was exorbitantly high. And I think one of the reasons for a very, very long time, let alone putting COGS aside, being a brand is definitely not what you do if you do this because you love it, right? You don't do it because
you don't want to do it because you want to make, you get into a hedge fund.
Yeah.
You want the path to wealth. Use your arbitrage skills in the financial markets.
Exactly. One trend that it's just playing out in real time, faster and faster and faster and faster. I spoke at eTail on stage next to Jason Davis, CEO of Simon Data, really, really smart guy. And we got into a back and forth, interesting conversation about what are the implications of the cost of content creation really trending towards zero. And this is a trend that I am personally obsessive about, in large part because this is one of the theses that Unveiled is writing. But I'm curious, what do you think is happening here? And can AI create trusted content yet?
The way I feel about this is in a proliferation of content where the marginal cost is going to zero, content becomes a commodity. So what decommoditizes your content? If there's so limited amount of attention, do you end up in a world where your AI is creating this content at a marginal cost of zero and your personal procurement agent is consuming the content? Because we don't really have room to consume more information than we're already consuming.
Yeah.
This is just a total hypothesis, but I think the provably human stuff is going to become much more valuable, whether it's in content or whether it's in brands or whether it's in how things are made. I think one of the differentiators and signs of value can be the fact that a human was involved in this, because that's going to be scarce or more scarce.
This product was made in the United States. This product was made by a human. This ad was made by
That is dystopian to think about, but like also, I mean, I think
humans work at this company.
it's going to depend, because at the end of the day, people want the best product for the best price for the most part. And whether or not a human made that isn't going to matter that much. But there is a subset of decisions humans make that are less rational and more about story and emotion. And I think the human thing will matter there.
Two, I think, like, what are the implications, if you will, of the cost of content creation going to zero? So if content becomes a commodity, so what does this mean? So what? I think that, if the cost of creating net new content trends towards zero, what are the implications of that? I think it depends on the channel. So I completely agree with your take that for this immersion channel, SEO, AI, SEO, whatever you want to call it, verifiably human, trusted content, so Reddit, YouTube videos, this will play an even more important role. There's two new edges. The first new edge is not in your ability to create content. It's in your ability to test things and iterate really, really quickly. We're seeing this happen most rapidly with paid ads, simply because it's way, way, way easier to get to the end result. What is the truth on what actually performs best, as well as also so many dollars are put towards paid ads that the value of, a 2% incremental better piece of creative is it was always worth it. But now that the cost of content creation is trending towards zero, it's an absolute no-brainer. So I think the first skill is just in the muscle of rapid testing. So I think that's like the first interesting edge. And I think the second edge, like the so what is, and now it's all about matching the right content to the right person. And I think that's where it is. And it's having an understanding of who a specific person is, where they are in their journey, and then actually being able to serve them the right piece of content given their displayed preferences, whether it's, through like an MCP, you have essentially like, or actually just based off of, your own CDP or whatever piece of software you're using, understanding where they are and serving them the best piece of content. So I think that's what I get interested about, the personalization part. I also get really interested for brands, because it's been a really tough, putting COVID aside, it's been a really tough few years being in commerce. And I see this across all of the customers we work with, right? First, we have iOS 14. Now Shopify, which is amazing, has made it really, really easy also for competition to spin up. Tariffs, got the tariffs, right? It's one hit after another hit. This is maybe another hot take of mine. For the first time in a really long time, for the brands that are able to make it out of the tariffs, the cost of scaling up rapidly is going to drop so quickly. And unlike a lot of other industries, maybe just actually SaaS, I'll start off with, where I think are dire threat. A lot of SaaS companies are just an absolute dire threat of, given all, essentially software is now also a commodity. It's all about distribution. For brands that have a really good product or a really good brand, this is the one thing that's just not going to get commoditized. So I think I'm excited for brands. I'm excited because I think their margins are going to get way better. They can test way more things way more quickly. And it really just comes down to having an amazing orchestrator who has the vision.
It disintermediates Google, Meta, and Amazon too. And there's this whole new sparkling Cambrian explosion of competition in this space, which who knows how that's going to net out. But I think for now, it should benefit merchants, because all those big, enormous companies that you've needed to get to your customer have gotten better and better at capturing bigger shares of the value chain. So that's also made it hard for brands. Amazon especially, it used to be really profitable to run an Amazon business, now much more challenging. And I think just the addition of new channels and new competition should be really helpful too. I'm excited about that.
Yeah. It's just made, I think my final thought on this matter is, as the cost of marginal content creation trends towards zero, it has unlocked the economic viability of so many things that were previously not economically viable. right?
Yes.
And this is across every single touch point, owned touch point or rented touch point that each brand has with a consumer. And I think this all just boils down to personalization. This was a myth that people spoke about for such a long time. And honestly, it sounded great in theory, but it just didn't actually make economical sense for brands to invest in personalization because the cost of creating this content that was personalized. And now this is just unlocked so much more surface area. So I think that's another really interesting area that I'm excited about for brands.
Okay, you know what I want to do? I think you've gotten us to an optimistic spot in our conversation, which I love. I think that's probably a good place to leave it and wrap it up. After listening to you, I have a lot to unpack now. I have a lot of thinking to do, which is exactly what I wanted out of this. But I hope that was nice for people to hear. You good to hit
Let's
pause
wrap it.
and we'll see
Let's
it.
wrap
Yeah,
it
I'll
up.
see some for next week. Amazing. All right. Well, thanks, man. This was a lot of fun to do the first one. I'm stoked to do more. Thanks for joining us, everyone. We appreciate you listening to our inaugural episode. We are excited to have the opportunity to do this. We're going to be doing this weekly, and if this is a topic you're interested in, please subscribe and share this with anyone else you think might be interested in what we're talking about. We're looking forward to the next one, and we will see you soon.